What's going on, everybody? It's Stardust Gaming, and I'm gonna do a review on. So this is obviously gonna be some new war um spoilers for Warframe, but I'm gonna do a review on the new frame Caliban and what I might take on him. The new bow, which is the not a rook, which you get as a reward, and you also get to play with inside the new war. The Rumblejack, which is the Drifter's melee weapon. Um, the Venato, which is Caliban's signature scythe. The Vitterlack, which is Nira's whip, which is one of the mini bosses. Where's the other ones? There's also the Neferi, which are um, Amar's weapons. And then there's also the Corum, which is Boreal's trident, which is actually classified as a polearm, I believe, or a staff, but that's fine. So each one of these I'm going to try to do a video on, so it'll be like a several part series. So today we're going to focus on Caliban. Now, this is what he looks like base. Nothing too fancy to him. He's got really nice coloration. He really does take color pretty well. I mean, that's just to blind my friends. Um, but here's his abilities. So his passive is allies with an affinity range gain up to 50% resistances to the types of damage they take currently. So it's essentially an adaptation. Um, One of the big things that sucks about that is it doesn't stack with adaptation. And I believe if you put adaptation on, it'll actually just proc his passive, not adaptation itself. And then you have Razor Gyre, which is essentially you become just a Warframe Beyblade. And this is a confusing ability for me because I want to like it, but at the same time, it's if I were to swap any of these abilities out, it would probably be Razor Gyre. And that kind of sucks because it does slash damage. You know, it procs the slash damage, and if you dash towards somebody, it does impact. And the healing for it's not too great, but it increases as you accelerate your maelstrom. Sentient Wrath is probably, I think, his second best ability. It's kind of like a Rhino Stomp, but better in my opinion. And then you have Lethal Progeny, which actually allows you to summon sentience. And they're not phenomenal, but they do give you a lot of shields a second, at least with the build I have. I mean, it gives you 50.25 shields a second, and they can produce overshield. And then you have the Fusion Strike, which is really, I think, his best ability. My build is expensive as hell, but it's 115 compared to 100. And what it does is it actually procs a permanent armor debuff. Like, it's not a time debuff. Like, the people that are struck by it get a permanent debuff. And then the people that walk into the fallout actually get I think it's a timed debuff. But this is the build I use for him. It's a little bit like if I formed him twice so I can get that little bit of efficiency in there to help with how much he's spending. But with Arcane Energize in there, it really doesn't matter. If you're running Xenuric, it doesn't matter. And I run Prime Flow, so I get 531 energy. I guess I'll show you how these all work. So, we'll spawn some enemies here. We'll go with Orican. Because I only have this that sentient there, so I think the corrupted gunners are hold on. Clear, kill. Simulate. So his one, you can see it procs slashes pretty often. If I increase my speed by holding down the left button on your mouse, top right hand corner, you can actually, I believe it's RPMs, essentially, or damage per second. But it does proc the slash effects. It's not fantastic. But he does have a secondary ability with that, which is he can teleport. And it's a pretty decent teleport. I mean, it has some really, really buggy effects apparently. But it can be useful. It's just, it's mostly useful for healing. It's just the damage it does is not very good. I mean, it's just not. Even if you speed up, I mean, it's just like 34 damage a tick. It's just not good. So if I was going to, like, you know, subsume or change a ability out with the Helm, it would be that. One of the cool things though is you can pair it with your 2. You kind of do a little stomp there, and it kind of helps the amount of damage that you do with your 1, because as if anything doesn't die with your 2, they get held up in the air, and you deal, at least for me, I think it's 70% extra damage. Yeah, 70% extra damage, which is fantastic. You know, base wise, you're only doing 35%. I mean, it's still really, really good, but it's not great. But his 2 is really, really good for crowd control. Like, really, really good for crowd control, because it can, at least for me, it can lift up to 32 max targets, is what I've been grabbing with this. Which is amazing. Of course, I'll show you. So I got about a 40-meter radius here on my ability, so I should be able to hit every single one of these guys. And they all shouldn't die, because I'm not doing enough damage, but Yeah, every single one of them gets lifted up in the air. And while they're in the air, you know, you do all that damage. That extra damage, which is really, really nice. So it's really good for, like, low-level mobbing. And obviously with the higher level, you know, enemies, higher level enemies, it's not great, but it definitely works, you know? His third ability is... it's alright. The fact that it's... they can be taken out pretty easily. You know, the health multiplier and the damage multiplier kind of confuse me. I'm assuming the health multiplier is just based health that they have, and it's multiplied by the 3.01 that I have. Cool. You can only summon up to 3, but they do give you Overshield, which is really, really nice. But at the same time, they suck. They suck so bad. I mean, they kind of do the spin to win thing too, but they just get obliterated. You know, they don't have much attack. They don't do much of anything. And for sentience, I haven't even seen them adapt. You know? Like, they don't adapt. So it's not like they can be tanky. And they only last for so long. Yep. But his redeeming factor is his 4. His 4 is like an Iron Man, like Omnibeam. Essentially, it's kind of cool. So, pressing his 4, you get 3 beams, and you can actually spin around with this, which is kind of neat. You're not stuck with just one direction. I can't see anyone else, but and on impact, you actually get an implosion effect, which was changed recently. He was an explosion, so everyone would be flung outward, but now they kind of get sucked in, which is good for like finisher damage and stuff like that. If you can get them, if you can get a finisher move off, you know. And as you can see, like their armor is stripped. It at least with my build, it 100% strips armor. So these are 155 corrupted heavy gunners. You know, they got armor, a lot of it. And with one tap of his 4, armor's completely gone. And it's got a pretty big range too. You know, and you can see this this ring going around. That's the residual effect. So any enemy that walks in that actually gets that armor strip debuff. But that's only a temporary. While anybody that actually gets hit by the beams, that is a 100% armor strip permanent debuff. It is not a temporary thing. So that's really kind of cool. If I had to change anything, like I said, it would be his one. His one's kind of garbage. If I had to recommend how to build him, it'd be something like this. Nothing too fancy. You only need 200% strength for his 4. His 4 maxes out at 100% debuff, and that maxes at 200% strength. I take away intensify, it's down to 85. So there's really no need to add like an umbral intensify in there. I have these two to really, or these three to really get me to that 300 or that 200%. And then you can really sacrifice efficiency. It's not that big of a deal, especially if you have like Arcane Energize, you have Energy Siphon, you have, Zenuric, Energy Pizzas, which most people do, and this isn't too hard to come by, and they're not too terribly expensive either if you need to buy one. Arcane Energize is a pain in the ass, that I can say. Um, I gave up on trying to farm it, and I actually bought it. So, whoop-de-doo for me, right? Um, but he's an interesting frame. He really, really is. You want the range because you want to hit as far as you can with his Sentient Wrath. Like, you really, really do. And having the range for your Fusion Strike increases that debuff radius. So, like, for me, it's a 19-meter debuff radius. That's that giant circle you saw. But you really want to go for strength and range. At least that's me personally. You guys may think different. For me, I only added 2 Forma. I added a Dash Polarity, or an Aramon, and a Madurai Polarity. He already comes with a D and a V, but just for the little bit of extra room, so I can add like a Streamline in there, and you can swap the Streamline out for really anything you want. If you think he needs more armor, go ahead. Throw like an Armored Agility in there, or throw like, I don't know, Equilibrium if you really want to, or stuff like that. The fact that you don't have to put an adaptation in there saves you so much. You know what? You can swap it out for a natural talent. That way you can actually get the Sentient Wrath off over and over and over again, or spawn those, you know, sentience on you faster, or strip, I guess technically faster. You know, it's just, personal preference, I suppose, but that's what I would do. If you want more range, that brings your 2 up to 51.7 meters. um, there's no reason you need to hit someone 70 meters away with the beams, but you can do it, and that's okay. And you'll have a bigger radius, so it would be good for like if you want to hold down a defense point, and you're going against like high level Grenier, high level, corrupted, and you aim that shit at the ground, you get that 23.5 meter radius of debuff. It's only going to last 20 seconds for whoever, goes in. But the people you hit with those beams are permanently debuffed. And it works on bosses. So if you're doing Steel Path, you can throw this right on top of one of your acolytes, and it strips them completely of armor. You can throw this on like Vor, and it strips them completely of armor. It's insane. So overall, I think Caliban's a really, really good frame. I wish DE would change his one, make it more viable, you know? Because this could be really, really good. But there's like 2 frames that do this ability so much better. And that's Revenant and Inaros. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, I'd rather play, a spin to win Inaros with, I think, his 4. Or no, his 3, you know, than uh, Caliban's 1. And the reason for that being is because, well, for, for Inaros, I mean, you throw Pocket Sand out there, you know, and then you go ahead and press your 3, you're flinging people in the air, and whoever's stuck, if you press like Devour, it throws them in quicksand. If they're stuck in your 2, it instantly devours them. You do that whole Devour thing, so you're gaining your life back. It just does it so much better. You're not doing all that flinging with Caliban. You're just slicing them. And Sandstorm for Inaros does slash damage purely per second, not impact like Caliban does. Like he can proc slash damage, but damage increases a second, 201 impact damage per second. So, that's just me though. I don't really know what else to go on about him. I mean, overall he's a solid frame. He has good CC. Damage is decent, but he's definitely not the best frame in the game. By any means. But that'll be that. If you like this video and want to see more, like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys on the next one.